What if I told you that as a healthcare business owner, as a physician, practice administrator, whatever, that in your marketing and maybe your growth strategy, that you should stop talking about and stop putting out there, stop dropping the term loyalty from your medical office culture vocabulary, and instead understand that patient loyalty is earned. And if you can't earn it, you don't deserve it. Because I want you to forget loyalty and just serve the patient. And that's what I want you to be known for. Good morning or good evening, Docpreneur Nation. You're listening to Concierge Medicine Today's Docpreneur Leadership Podcast. And today I have a rather long podcast or webinar. You can watch the video or listen to the audio version of this. You can go to conciergemedicinetoday.org, click on our video library, and you'll see the pathway to patient loyalty as one of our video library webinars that you can download and watch. Go to conciergemedicinetoday.org. But before we jump in, a couple of things. We have our annual industry conference, the Concierge Medicine Forum, coming this October 16 through 18 here in Atlanta. And you can go to conciergemedicineforum.com. And if you use my promo code SAVE60, that's SAVE 60, you can save $60 off a 2 or 3 day ticket. Go to conciergemedicineforum.com. We have two pre-conference workshops happening on Thursday, October 16th, and then our main conference starts on Friday morning and lasts until Saturday at noon Eastern. But our two pre-conference workshops are pretty awesome. A whole bunch of speakers, probably over 20 or 30 speakers on just that one day alone. And one of them is Membership Medicine 101, everything you could possibly want to know from industry experts and your peers about how concierge medicine models work, the options available to you, and what really works for you, because there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And you'll connect with industry leaders, you'll connect with industry consultants, you'll connect with industry physicians who have been there, done that. Don't compare your beginning or your middle to somebody else's beginning or middle or end, because everybody's on a different journey, especially physicians. You may have had come from this background or this practice or this environment. Again, everyone is different. But today and then our other workshop pre-conference on Thursday, October 16, is marketing your practice, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And that's why I'm recording this, because if you're listening to this, this is the bonus, the extended version, right? It's like Zack Snyder's extended director's cut. This is the long-winded version, the much more thorough version of the pathway to patient loyalty, talking about patient experience and all the things that go along with that. And so you can go learn more about that, get your tickets, go to conciergemedicineforum.com. All right, so let's talk about the pathway to patient loyalty. This is kind of a big deal, folks. And I know that for some of you, talking about marketing, it's not fun, it's not easy, but a disclaimer, I don't have all this figured out, but I am pretty passionate about it. And while I don't want you to think that I have it all figured out, I've talked to hundreds, if not a couple thousand physicians over the years about specific marketing questions and tasks and things that they do and don't do. And we've learned best practices, and we put that all up on conciergemedicinetoday.org. And we share it in Concierge Medicine Forum in person each year at the industry conference. But I don't want you to confuse my passion and this conversation for, thinking that we have it all figured out, because we don't. What we have, we give and share with you with open hands and say, hey, this is what we've learned. But I do want to start with a little bit of an encouragement, and that is hard work in hard times test our confidence. All of us. Happens to the best of us, right? But there's good news out there for you and for me, is that, listen, you've done hard stuff before, and you're going to do hard stuff again. So while this thing called marketing and growing your practice might seem a little bit daunting or complicated or uncertain, I'm here to tell you that we're here for you. And you've done hard stuff before. You can do this, right? Like you know how to be a great physician. You know how to be a great practice administrator, whatever role you're in. You can do this. I believe in you. Now, as we jump off, here's where I want us to start. Typically, physicians will fall into two categories, one more than the other. And I'm going to let you decide which, because we probably all know where most of us sit, because that's what we've been taught all these years. Old school marketing, which is where most of us land and kind of jump off when we think about marketing, is old school marketing says, hey, you know what? A brand is what it tells consumers that it is. So when you see a commercial out there, and I tell you about how great that this brand or this company is, that's what you think marketing is. But there's a new school of thought. There's new school marketing that says, look, a brand, a doctor, a medical office, um, whatever it might be, a car brand. A brand is what consumers tell each other that it is, right? Like when we think about mechanics, right? We don't see a lot of mechanic shops because a lot of their marketing is word of mouth, similar to doctor's offices. It's like, where did you go? But more often than not, you left medical school, you took signed up for the golden handcuffs, you got your name and credentials in the directories, and now you just assume that that's going to be how your career is going to work out. And maybe it hasn't worked out that way. And now you're off of those directories and no one's finding you on the HMO and PPO or POS directories. And you're like, I'm kind of left to my own devices and my reputation is just so-so. My Google and Healthgrades reviews are just so-so. My Vitals reviews are just so-so. And a brand is now what consumers tell each other that it is. And so here's where I want us to, start off from. This is a really simple infographic that I've been learning more and more about this year related to our brain function and I'm not a physician, so I don't pretend to be one. I'm just a marketing guy with public relations degree who went to a party school. So, very, very, you take my advice about talking about brain function very, with a grain of salt, of course. But I think that from a marketing and business perspective, there's new research that's talking more and more about part of our brain that's called the mid-cingulate cortex. And for some of you, you know this really well. And you're like, oh, yeah. And it's a simple infographic that ties the mid-cingulate cortex functions to business and marketing and the implications and how slow adoption in healthcare specifically is that holds doctors back from making good decisions. Essentially, the mid-cingulate cortex is a part of our brain that is involved in motivating our behaviors, error detection, decision making. We use it every single day, and it's talking a little bit, it helps us with our effort-based behaviors. So in simple terms, it's like the do I push forward or do I say safe control panel, right? The mid-cingulate cortex thinks about things, whether the effort or a task or the idea of marketing or spending money here or measuring over here, patient retention is worth it compared to the reward, right? Or should I hire this person or not hire that person? Or it's active when we weigh risk versus reward under uncertainty, right? It helps us with our response and feedback. It detects when something goes wrong and signals to us the need to adjust. And it's really a well-functioning mid-cingulate cortex pushes us all to act when the reward is clear and achievable, which is why marketing your business and growth may have reached this stall for some of you, or you just can't seem to get unstuck. Well, you have something to blame, and it's yourself, right? It's your mid-cingulate cortex. And here's how it all connects to your healthcare practice and your business operations, and why most of your colleagues, and maybe you as well, just can't seem to get unstuck. Essentially, this graphic here shows us that the most primary care and family medicine doctors are highly risk averse. Makes perfect sense, right? With 82% preferring to avoid uncertainty, and that that they are far more motivated to act when the rewards are clear and achievable. 78% than when results are uncertain at 22%. And I think that this also highlights for all of us how those tendencies are influencing your practice growth and your decision making on the business side of your practice, particularly when it comes to marketing and trying new approaches to grow your practice without knowing the end result. Now, here's the business case for applying the mid-cingulate cortex and kind of trying to rewire some of your brain a little bit, right? When you think about the problem, well, the problem is healthcare is really, really slow to adopt new ideas, right? When genetics came in the late teens, 20 teens, right? I remember talking with a genetic physician, and he's like, "We've been talking about this for 30 years. It's just kind of one of those things that we just now started talking about again, right?" Like those of us who know, you know. But healthcare lags in adopting proven business and marketing principles a lot because they think that it doesn't work, right? We're all used to getting credentialed, signing the golden handcuffs contract, and assuming and presuming that patients are just going to walk in the door because you're in network, right? Or maybe you're nice and you think everybody thinks you're nice too, and they want to keep coming back, which is not necessarily always the case. In fact, that's the minority of physicians out there. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But today, patients face a lot of friction. There's long waits, there's poor follow up, there's complicated booking. I'm still waiting for a lot of doctors' offices and even my PT to follow up with me from years ago. I'm sure you are too. But many doctors undervalue the patient experience as a driver of growth. They think that, well, those are good ideas, but we don't do that here. Or, yeah, sure, those are all really good ideas that you've shared with us today, but we don't have time for that. And the result is you have high patient churn rates, underutilized services, and you're missing out on revenue. Now, there's also science related to the mid-cingulate cortex. Conflicting monitoring. It detects decision difficulties. Effort-based decision making helps us with estimates effort versus reward and so much more. It shapes how we feel about our choices. But then there's number 3 on this list. Business leaders have this figured out outside of healthcare. And a few, I would say 2 out of every 10 physicians have this figured out. They reduce friction in customer journeys. They offer clear, simple defaults and bundles when they're marketing things. They frame rewards in their marketing and their communication and the benefits to increase motivation. And they do split test, A/B split testing, and so on. So how can healthcare, we're getting a little bit in the weeds here, but how healthcare can apply the mid-cingulate cortex idea, right? How can we kind of rewire our brain a little bit? Well, we should start by mapping out the patient journey and remove these high effort steps because there's a theater happening inside of your practice. And patients they feel a little bit of problems coming down the road and in the scene transitions. They feel that sometimes these scene transitions, when it's handed off from the staff manager, the office manager to the nurse, or to the nurse to the doctor to the next person, these scene transitions are impacting patient experience. And often these scene transitions are not being handled very well. And this is one area we can improve almost right away once we know about it. And I think that healthcare can also apply this by starting to implement some operational experiments. This is how I've always done it, or we don't have time for that, but that's a really good idea. Yeah, those are permission slips and hall passes to continue like we always have been, and nothing will change. That is a guaranteed warranty of results. You want to keep doing what you've always been doing? Just keep doing what you've always been doing and don't expect the same or better results. Now, we've started to see, and I put the sources here below related to retention and all these things. You'll start to see when you understand the mid-cingulate cortex and how to kind of rewire your brain a little bit related to marketing and business, that 20 to 40% increase seen in concierge medicine models when they implement these types of ideas and solutions and patient experience concepts. We've seen revenue go from 100 to 500,000 per year, even more. And there's efficiency that you have lower patient acquisition costs, and you're able to start upselling some things. You increase more premium services. You're able to ask for more money. And believe it or not, that's not a bad thing, because your words carry weight, right? Like, the source matters. Your words weigh 1,000 pounds to me as your patient. You're probably one of the top 5 most influential voices in my life. So for you to come back and say, well, I'm increasing my price. Well, if it's an easy decision for you, and it's an easy decision, it's probably going to be an easy decision for the patients. Doctors who align with and start adopting a mid-cingulate cortex aligned business-driven design principles can improve patient experience, increase loyalty, and grow revenue faster than traditional models. Now, here's kind of how this works, this brain-based business growth model that can kind of get you somewhat neurologically unstuck and out of that maintenance mode and into growth mode. In summary, the mid-cingulate cortex, it's a really small part of our brain that helps us with emotions. We're all dealing with a certain amount of perseverance, right? And there's comfort sometimes that we experience related to that. And sometimes there's just a leap of faith that we're taking. And then we can become either comfortable or complacent. We can become tense, or we can become hopeful, or worse. But when we experience pain or we need to make a tough decision, the mid-cingulate cortex starts to fire and it gets active, and it helps us to figure out what to do next. And when we understand how the mid-cingulate cortex works, it's kind of one of those things like a light bulb moment. It helps us understand how to treat conditions like depression or anxiety, and we grow best when we have resistance and challenges. Right? Like when we strength train and we do our exercises, we have to have a little bit of resistance in order to grow muscle. Growth happens best when you and I experience challenges and we persevere, not just one or the other. And when we move past our comfort zone and we experience some perseverance and some tension, not just one or the other, there's a threshold of discomfort, but we grow, don't we? We also have a threshold of resilience, right? We bounce back fairly quickly. But when we experience challenge and we persevere and we lean into those areas equally, like the line going up says, and we won't, right? It's going to be one of these, but we will start to experience growth. And growth in that area, in the heart of the patient, is where the real battleground is. And when you do this effectively, patients will start talking positively about you. And that's the key point. That's where growth happens. So if you don't believe me, let's play the Would You Rather game. Because we asked and played the Would You Rather game with a whole bunch of prospective patients and asked them, hey, as a patient searching for a new doctor, today in our culture, in our marketplace, would you rather go through TSA screening, go to the DMV, or visit a doctor's office? The results probably won't surprise you, but most people would rather, 62% almost, go through TSA screening. Another 18% said I'd rather go to the DMV. And finally, at the bottom, visit a doctor's office at not even 15%. Now, here's a little factoid. Did you know that the hotel industry typically spends between $1,200 and $6,000 per employee on customer service and hospitality training annually, with hourly roles averaging around $1,200 and management positions reaching up to $6,000, depending on their level of responsibility? Now, what if I told you that we've all been taught to shine the spotlight of marketing on the organization, the brand, or in your case, the doctor, and not the customer or the patient? Even Dr. Robert Pearl, in chapter 5 of his book, Uncaring, if you haven't read that book, it's a great book. He highlights the topic and the importance of customer service and hospitality in healthcare, where he says doctors are taught how to cure people, but they don't always know how to care for them. Here's a quote from one of my favorite authors. He said, if a business was a person, many businesses would be considered narcissists. Now, before you kick me out of the room, or you hit stop or unsubscribe, or you just can't take me any longer, you turn me off and shut the volume down, I want you to go and do this exercise for me. Visit the Instagram or the Facebook page of your practice, or your competitor's practice, or a brand that you know down the street. How many of the last 10, 20 posts are about that practice? And how many are about the community or the people outside of the four walls of that practice? Now, you might be thinking, well, there's HIPAA involved. There's a way to do that, obviously. There are successful businesses out there that have cracked that code. But what are the top reasons why patients leave their current physician? A lot of people unknowingly would say, oh, it's all about cost and insurance incompatibility. But when you look at and you survey patients, we see that convenience and wait times. He or she spends in less than 15 minutes with me per visit. I feel like a number. The staff is difficult. They're retired or they're closing. He or she asks me less than 5 questions. And finally, last is cost and insurance incompatibility. So if you make the argument that cost is why doctors or patients are leaving your practice, you're not right. Meaningful brand study, according to the Havas Group, every couple of years, they do a meaningful brands study or survey. And it's a very far-reaching global study about different brands, healthcare included. And it's by the Havas Group. And it looks at 1,800 brands in 31 different countries. And they have over 350,000 responses. And they link brand performance to quality of life and well-being. And essentially, they found that people wouldn't care if 77% of brands disappeared. Well, I love this question, and I thought that it was so great that I wanted to ask prospective patients leaving their doctor and in search of other doctors. And I'm going to get into what we found in that survey of prospective patients from a healthcare perspective in the last few years as well. But when we think about business parallels and we think about healthcare, specifically concierge medicine, we think about hospitality and retail and automotive and memberships and subscriptions. Well, there are things that we can learn. In concierge medicine, regardless of how you feel or you think about it, it does mirror really successful brands that have done things right. The Shift, according to Lexus, they introduced a white glove experience and a warranty. The Shift in the Ritz-Carlton and hospitality, personalized anticipatory service. Apple, the Genius Bar, accessible experts, not salespeople. I mean, concierge medicine has this stuff in spades, which is why I'm passionate about it. Not evangelistic, but passionate about it. So getting back to the survey related to brands and how much or how little would you actually care, here's what we found. If your doctor's office went out of business tomorrow, how much or how little would you care? When we asked patients this, only 23% said, call the mayor, save this business. They would absolutely be missed. Don't let this medical office close. Only 23%. So that means out of 10 people, 2.3 people would say, you're super important. We can't afford to lose you. Otherwise, the rest, 58% said, yeah, it'd be inconvenient, but I didn't have a relationship or really care either way with the physician. And 19%, actually, I'm kind of glad they're gone. I wanted a new one anyway. Words have weight. Your influence in our lives as the patient, and I know this because I am a patient, and I do know what it's like to sit on the other side of the exam room or the service window from you and your staff, they have weight. As a leader, which you are, your words don't just matter, they linger. And the source determines the weight of your words. If you don't believe me, let's look at PricewaterhouseCoopers customer experience radar. They found that staff attitude was cited as the main contributor to positive experiences by 70% of consumers in the provider sector, compared to 38% of retail shoppers, 33% of bank, hospital, and airline customers. Personal experience was found to be the top reason that patients choose a doctor or hospital, and it's more than 2.5 times more important than it is to consumers in other industries. Don't miss this. price was the top driver of purchasing decisions for consumers in every industry except or but healthcare. So that proves our point. Now, I want to give you a piece of advice that we got from a couple of people this summer. Don't replicate, innovate. Jim Eishin, who you'll hear at the Concierge Medicine Forum, and Jonah Eimer, who are both attorneys, we interviewed them this summer and found that they said this, essentially saying, avoid formulas, he said, brands and models that work against you, implementing your vision, your unique vision of healthcare. Don't replicate, he said, innovate, and do so using the reference structuring that for decades has achieved Medicare compliance and tax advantage funding options. Call to practice whatever you want. Incorporate whatever healthcare services you wish into your subscription or your membership. And don't be constrained by the ill-informed guidance in this marketplace that is not using existing laws / guidance to maximize your practice's potential. I love that quote by Jim. Again, you'll hear more of him at the Concierge Medicine Forum. Jonah said, because each concierge practice has unique patient fee agreements to consider, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to advising these practices. Concierge practices should not overlook the unique legal and practice and even marketing issues that face them, the patient fees issues to physician departures as well. These models have a variety of challenges, legal and otherwise, that should be addressed at the early stages of the practice, so they do not lead to partner or patient discord later on. So I say all of that to say you should have a board of advisors. Like, you should be surrounding yourself. If Home Depot and Coca-Cola have a board of advisors that they listen to that can help them see their blind spots, you should have this too. Now, if we were to look forward 10 years, where are patients going to turn? Where are the trends in healthcare moving? Well, they're moving into these three areas: generative AI, longevity technology, and branding importance. The key thing, I think, is the advantage for concierge medicine in particular. No other brand except concierge medicine, regardless of whatever terminology you want to call it. Concierge medicine stands alone in this, where patients will choose based on trust, reviews, personalization, not proximity, cost, or insurance. Longevity technology, concierge practices will lead by adoption. They already started to do this over the past several years, as you've seen here at our Concierge Medicine Forum, with biomarkers and lifestyle tracking and AI diagnostics. And they will outperform already AI and generative AI platforms and tools. They're already outperforming family medicine on speed and breadth of knowledge. Now, nothing can replace you. That's absolutely true. But patients don't know that, and they're losing sight of that. And as this bar graph shows, projected AI tool usage is going to kind of get even with primary care visit ratios in probably 2030. Again, I don't know if this is going to be true or not, but AI is growing, and AI is a tool that's so easy, it's in our back pocket now. Why are patients turning to these AI tools? Well, the 2025 trends are showing this, that these tools are growing by 28 to 35% annually among millennials and Gen Zers. So do you think that they're going to start choosing other subscription models that, go to a primary care doctor's office when they have the convenience of this information in their back pocket? No, they're not. In fact, the cited reasons are speed, convenience, perceived accuracy, and the avoidance of scheduling transportation issues. There's accuracy. According to JAMA in 2023, these AI diagnostic tools perform more accurately at 77% than primary care physicians, at 64% in standardized clinical scenarios. Stanford study in 2024, AI systems answered patient symptom queries as well or better than 78% of licensed physicians. Now, are they going to be there with you in the emergency room? Yeah, these tools will be, but they're not going to handhold you. They can't sew you up, right? Like, there's obviously things that these things can't do. But primary care, it is in decline. From 2022 to 2025, primary care visits declined 11% across Gen Z and younger millennials. Now, you might be like, well, we're just talking about Gen Z and millennials in this survey, right? Well, again, when we go back and we look at projected use, this affects all age groups, not just Gen Zs, not just millennials. AI health tools also saw 37% usage increases in these same groups. And it's projected, again, by 2035, that AI will be the primary first touch points for basic healthcare questions by patients. So, declining trust in primary care doctors, specifically in family medicine doctors, and the rising patient reliance on alternative care sources such as AI and these other tools are eroding a physician's influence and limit future growth unless they adapt to meet patients' needs for what? What is the answer? Convenience, responsiveness, personalization, or connection. This is where I need the tension that's in you right now to do its work, right? If this makes you sad, if it makes you weary, uncertain, or just downright mad, I need that tension to do its work in your mid-cingulate cortex. Because what if I told you that according to a patient poll by Concierge Medicine Today from 2018 to 2022, that when selecting a new physician, what are the most important factors? Well, here's what patients said. Only 11% of patients surveyed, over 1,000 patient surveys respondents, noted that the cost was the most important factor when choosing a doctor. Otherwise, it's finding a doctor I know, like, and trust, convenience, and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's pretty telling. And that's pretty reaffirming to new school marketing, that a brand is no longer what it tells consumers it is. It is what consumers tell each other that it is. And that is your secret ingredient. I think the concierge medicine, what makes it attractive is the emphasis on proactive longevity, preventive exams, personalization, the connection that you're making relationally. Those are things that the tools out there in the emergency rooms, in the urgent cares, and the nurse practitioners, all these other things that we have access to as patients, that's your advantage. It's not reactive. Strong alignment with affluent patients, like seeking Ritz-Carlton experiences, not waiting room medicine, that's great too. But impact on your brand reputation, we found that the average before switching to concierge medicine, a lot of doctors, they went from 0 to hero in a matter of months or a couple of years. The average before switching was 3.2 stars. The average after switching, 4.6, according to Google, Yelp, and Health Grades. And patients, why are they choosing concierge medicine? Well, they're saying things like, I finally feel seen. I finally have healthcare that listens, and it was worth every penny. You see, we're all, as patients, like a teenage girl in search of an iPhone. We're going to ask grandma, we're going to get what we want, right? We're going to ask grandma for money. We're going to get jobs. We're going to do what we got to do to get the latest and greatest. And that's what your patients are wanting. If they see the value in you, it's a no-brainer to join your practice. But we need to start communicating that through our marketing. So we've already shared a little bit about this, but in case you're on the fence about what's the difference between concierge medicine and DPC, most of you already know this. But in case you don't, well, let me point it out in words in star ratings and review ratings. From 3.2 to 4.6, it was an average of 1.4 gain. Why is this? Well, concierge medicine is driven by personalized service, continuity, and proactive care. Notice I didn't say anything about access. DPC went from 3.4 on average to 3.9, and only an average gain of about 0.5. Why is this? Well, it gains from price transparency, which, yeah, that's important, but it's less rushed visits too. And it's still somewhat formulaic. There's still a lot more patients that you have to have for a cheaper price point. And don't race to the bottom. And we'll get to that here in just a minute. But traditional primary care, family medicine doctors, they're flatlining at their star reviews around 3.2. There's no change over the past 3 years. And it's primarily due to frustration, due to wait times, rush visits, and even a lot of administrative issues. I love what our interview with Jim said earlier this summer, he said, don't let guilt drive your strategy. You're worth more than you think you are. Now, we're not going to get into the weeds of what you should price or what you should charge. That's up to you. Instead of allowing, he said, a combination of guilt and lack of accurate pricing market data to cause you to underprice and devalue your brand, consider instead pricing your practice at true market value, but using ad hoc scholarships and discounts and employer funding to improve equitable access to cash healthcare. Again, if you want more information about that, here's a list of attorneys. Take a picture of it. Reach out to them. They're each knowledgeable. I'm not endorsing them. This is not medical, legal, accounting, financial, or other advice. These are just great resources that have a knowledge about this specific industry in concierge medicine and are very open-minded and just solid resources for you. All right, continuing our move forward. I want to ask you 3 questions. Are you a villain? Are you an inconvenient obstacle in the way of the patient today? Or are you an ally? My daughter and I love to watch movies. In fact, when she turned 13, which is, when we were kind of allowed as our family to watch all the PG-13 movies, we started to get into some of the really neat movies like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all these different things and Star Wars. And I'm not one of those kind of dress up kind of guys, but we love our movies. I've always been a big movie fan. But I think that attending your medical office today or attending any medical office, regardless of specialty, is a lot like an adventure. It's a story akin to The Lord of the Rings. Now, why do I say that? Well, along the path, there's going to be allies. There's going to be obstacles for us as patients, and we're going to probably encounter some enemies, much akin to this popular movie that many of us have seen. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. But there are 3 types of characters in every single medical office, regardless of where you practice or who they are. There's the hero, the patient. Now, I know that usually that's counterintuitive. You would think that the doctor is the hero. But let me explain what the hero definition is, according to Webster's. The hero is the principal character. They're a person admired for their achievements and noble qualities. He or she is the central figure in an event, period, or movement. They're an object of extreme admiration. Now, you could define that as the doctor because of all of those things. But this is where old school marketing meets new school marketing. If you start looking at the patient as the hero of the story, because there's a theater of your practice happening every single time. And what one patient walks, the theater and the play that acts itself out, every single patient is different for every single patient, right? Your staff are reacting differently to questions. Your staff are reacting differently to different emotions that the patient has along that journey. But this is where old school marketing meets new school marketing. If you start to see the patient as the hero, you're already on the right path. Then we encounter villains. We've all met our fair share of orcs in healthcare. Now, it's a character in the story who opposes the hero, right? We can all think about probably faces and places and names that come to mind. They're one who is blamed for a particular evil or difficulty, and my favorite definition, a deliberate scoundrel. And then there's the all-knowing, all-wise ally. They work hard toward another person's interests as long as it serves their own, and they are a trusted confidant. You see, in each new scene that the patient encounters today and tomorrow or later this afternoon, every encounter is going to be a feeling or a place. A feeling. It is a feeling. Is this a place of healing or hostility? You see, I think that there needs to be a perspective shift when we think about marketing, and particularly as we think about the theater of your practice. Customer service and patient hospitality, patient experience, it matters. Medical offices like yours think in terms of function, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to know the roles that and the tasks and the to-do things that your team is going to do. That's good business. An example would be, well, who's going to open the practice or the office each morning? Who is going to help intake patients? Who's going to escort the patients? Who's going to handle pre-authorizations? What if somebody calls in sick? Who's going to pick up the workload? Who will handle the paperwork? Who's going to handle the billing and the accounting? Who's going to answer the phone or make the return phone calls and the schedule follow-ups? Then in the middle of all that, you assign your team the task, usually offhandedly or in a staff meeting, and you're like, hey, just a reminder, I know you got everybody's busy, but I need you to be nice too. So as you assign your task, the team of welcoming patients and making them feel comfortable, when in reality, the employee has a job to do. And that's rightly so. But they don't have the mission or the mindset. They don't see the patient through the lens of, how do I make what I do better? There are three classifications of employees right now in your practice. There's an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. I love what the book Excellence Wins by Horst Schulze said. He said, I hire people to join me in my dream, not to fulfill a function. And all too often, this perspective shift, we don't understand that patients don't think like this. We don't think in terms of function. Instead, we're on an entirely different journey. We're in an entirely different path. The patient doesn't care or know what functions your nurse or your administrative staff are going to perform today. We don't care. And it's not being mean. We just don't care about that. It's not our purpose for today. We don't want to know how hard it is for you to get paid for that exam from that insurance company. Instead, a patient thinks in terms of scenes. And the process can go something like this. Scene 1, I drive to the practice. Or you could even say that the patient journey started long before this, when they needed to Google you or visit your website or call your phone tree and make an appointment. But let's just say it starts as the drive to the practice. Let's say scene 2 is finding a parking spot in that big old and intimidating parking deck. And then, am I on the right deck? Am I on the right floor? Walking to the front doors. Maybe I've got a walker. Maybe I've got a boot. Maybe crutches. Maybe something worse. Maybe it's navigating the lobby in that 10-point font on this. And you're like, I don't know what the name of this practice is. I just know that I'm supposed to see Dr. So-and-so, and I have no idea what floor he's on. I guess I got to go to their website again. What's the website's name? There's a lack of communication, lack of personalization. Scene 6, conversation with staff and intake tasks while being escorted to the exam room. Scene number 7, entering the exam room, finding a seat and preparing to visit the doctor, waiting. Scene 8, questions and answers with the doctor. You see, we're on scene number 8 and we've just gotten to see the doctor. Then we hit scene number 9, handoff to doctor, staff. Scene 10, billing and next steps. Scene 11, the walk to the parking area and finding my car. Oh my goodness, are they going to validate or not? Scene 12, escaping the parking lot and the best ways to avoid sitting in traffic. Scene 13, picking up a prescription that they didn't call in soon enough. You see, each new scene of your practice right now, this is happening, and it's happening differently, whether you like it or not, for every single patient. And that's unique, and it's different, and it's good, and it's bad, all at the same time. And each scene of your office is a moment of potential conflict, a moment of tension and problem solving. And if your staff's not empowered or sees the vision of how do I make what I do better, or how do I make the patient experience better, if they're not equipped and empowered with that vision and that mission, then of course, each scene of your office and your practice today is a moment of conflict and tension and hostility. When it concerns customer service and improving your employee culture, always, 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 always sacrifice the one for the many, not the many for the one. I've seen this, and you've seen this too, where we keep an employee on because they just know a lot, but they're terrible at customer service. Along the way, there will be inconveniences, there will be tension, and there will be stressors. But in each scene of your office, there is moments of conflict. Is this the correct address? Are the directions right? What about heavy traffic? Is the doctor or nurse going to make me do something embarrassing that I'm not prepared for? Are they even here today? I don't even know that. Are people going to look at me weird? So I ask you again, are you a villain? Are you a hero? Are you an ally? Or are you an inconvenient obstacle? More and more, I hear from doctors who disagree with this concept. They say things to me like, well, instead, I must delight my patients. What the hell does that mean? I'm not naive to the fact that there is a lot of tension and resistance to these ideas. The idea of marketing, the idea of making money in your practice. But my standards as a patient will continue to remain high for every doctor in my life and my family's life because your words carry weight. 5 words from you mean more than 50 words about you. And I'm proud and I'm energized and excited and enthusiastic about what I see happening in concierge medicine alone because I think that it raises the bar. But it boggles my mind as patients how we are never rewarded for being early for appointments. We're still asked and forced to wait, listen to a staff member or your entire staff complain about their coworkers, the printer, the boyfriend, and 30 to 2.5 hours later, no one is even in the waiting room or talked to us since we checked in. Yet, we still wait. And you expect us to keep coming back? Insideritis is a malady afflicting the vision of organizations by focusing on insider issues over outsider issues. I love what Kerry Newhoff talks about when he talks about the 7 signs of suffering from insideritis. My favorite one is probably number 4, because healthcare is littered with abbreviations and acronyms. They're everywhere. And if someone has to learn code to join your organization or your practice, for example, direct primary care, DPC, it suffers from an educational conundrum. You won't likely have many people joining, which is why the direct consumer side of direct primary care is something that I wish would be better, but it just isn't because of the educational curve and because a lot of those prices and those practices have raced their fees and lowered their fees to the bottom in a race to the bottom in thinking that being the cheapest, or I'm sorry, the most affordable care, primary care in town will get them more patients. But what they miss is the patient experience. Now, there are great DPC doctors out there who have an amazing patient experience. But for the most part, if you're thinking, well, everyone knows what XYZ means, then you've played right into the central problem of insideritis. Yeah, sure. Insiders know what that term means or what that abbreviation or acronym means, but outsiders don't. Please be more specific, Michael. How do I know my practice has been infected by insideritis? Well, it presents itself as a symptom like this, and it's a cancer. And unfortunately, it spreads pretty fast. Patient burnout and insideritis, they kind of go hand in hand. Insideritis presents itself in a practice in between the scene transitions like this. You're going to hear things like, what's the problem? Can I have a name? Do you have an appointment? When was the last time? Is it urgent? You're going to need to call this number. I don't see record of that. Are you, or did you? Everything's shifting the blame back on and the responsibility back onto the patient. You're going to need to, you'll have to, or my favorite, we will call you. I don't know about you, but I'm still waiting on plenty of phone calls from doctors' offices that never happened. Now, I might be sounding, all of this might sound really hard and harsh, but hospitality, we have to understand in marketing of healthcare today, hospitality is a process. Sure, absolutely it is. But the goal is not to make the patient feel processed. Why? Because as a leader, which you are, your patients, your words, They don't just matter, your words, they linger. And the source of those words determines the weight, right? Your words weigh 1,000 pounds. We had this conversation, this panel years ago here at the Concierge Medicine Forum, and it said that every doctor is in the customer service business. I love that. Now, hospitality to me is the cure. Why do I say that? Well, I'm not a physician. I'm on the receiving end of all the crap and all the good things that are done in healthcare. I'm a patient. And I do know what it's like to sit on the other side of the exam room, the service window, the monitor from you. Patients like predictability. We like safety. We want moments of surprise and delight and those little extras in the scene of our journey today that don't bring disruption, tension, chaos to patients or uncertainty. We want comfort. And I know that you can't always bring that or deliver that. But taking a patient to the office to explain findings clearly and showing them exactly what happened and why, it's the little things that matter. Another couple of little things, pro tips. When you turn a potential disappointment into a moment of surprise and delight, like walking me back to see the exact reason why this happened, that matters. That's what I remember. When you walk around or work around a restrictive policy in a moral, legal, and ethical way, that becomes memorable. You see, patients come back because of how you made them feel. That's marketing 101. That's new school marketing. The goal, I know your goal, is the same as mine. We want a lifelong patient. But you have to focus on the relational over the transactional, and more transactions, therefore, will be earned. And the more personable doctors can become, and the smaller you become, the more meaningful you will be in our patients' lives. You will reap the benefits of lifelong patients, and we're going to have to give them a reason to continue to choose you. You must give the patient something remarkable, worth remarking about to others. And right now in our culture, in our healthcare marketplace, outside these four walls in yours and mine, healthcare is anything but remarkable. Patients think in scene by scene. They're on a journey. And hospitality starts the instant you make eye contact. It starts the instant they pick up the phone. The first 10 seconds are critically important. In fact, within 4 meters or even 12 feet, your staff need to be making eye contact and saying these words, "Hello, so-and-so, first name. We're glad you're here." And if you can't do that and it makes you feel uncomfortable and you don't know who's walking through the door next, just say, "Hey, we're so glad that you're here," and make eye contact. Be an ally. Empower your staff. Empower your team to make it better and take it personally. And an ally will work diligently toward another person's interest, becoming a trusted confidant and helping them avoid obstacles that may get in the way. Too often, staff do not act in this way. You see, a doctor's message to his or her community should communicate, "Hey, we've been waiting for you, and we're so glad that you're here, and we're ready to serve you." I love what Horst Schulze said. He said, "The whole focus of an organization or a business, in my opinion, has to be once a customer walks in my business or deals with me, they want to deal with me again." A great book I would highly encourage you to read is by Jason Young. It's called The Comeback Effect. It talks all about marketing and how important those small little details are about keeping the customer coming back. You see, I think hospitality is the cure for patient burnout. I think that it's something that we can use to treat the cancer that is insideritis. How do you do this? Well, you turn a potential disappointment into a moment of surprise and delight, and you work around that restrictive policy, and you make yourself an ally. preventing the obstacle from even happening versus the villain. Here's a couple of examples. That's my daughter. And she talked about the toys that were in the treasure chest at the end of her pediatric visit. It's a small little thing. We took this and borrowed this idea from our church, where every time it rains, they bring out these containers of umbrellas. Or when you leave, and if it's raining, they bring out these containers of umbrellas and they say, take an umbrella with you. You're under no obligation to bring it back. Maybe it's raining at your practice where you are because you live in the Keys or wherever you live. If it's just plain raining outside, you know, keep a few umbrellas. Under no obligation are they to return them, but you'd be surprised who does. And it's a conversation point. I've heard concierge doctors take this idea and run with it. I love hearing these stories. One day I'm going to hear a story about how a patient walked out to the parking deck and had a flat tire, and how one of your team or you went out and changed the tire for them. I can't wait for that day. I also took a picture and borrowed this idea from my dentist's office. See, I like to borrow ideas. I think that these are great marketing cues. They're personal and they're small. I've been going to the same dentist for the last 20 years, and only one time in that 20 years have those cups in the mouthwash station ever been empty. Otherwise, they're always full. Somebody is in charge of that. Somebody took ownership of that. Somebody took it personally, and somebody's trying to make it better. And I want that for my kids. And I want that for the next generation of patient, because we got to leave healthcare better than how it found us. I mean, for goodness sake, if the DMV can figure out radical hospitality in healthcare is about the little things. I think if the DMV can figure this out, why can't we get it right inside of the exam room? I get it. Can't make everybody happy. You certainly can't. I'm human. You're human. Your next patient is human. And sometimes you just can't please everybody. That's okay. We can't make everyone happy. We're not a Nutella jar. You're not a Nutella jar. And I do think, however, that you're as awesome as cold milk after chocolate cake. If anything today, I want you to consider this. The path to your dream job right now, the path to your tomorrow, leads through what you do today. So I want you to show up. And I want you to be faithful where you are. And I want you to serve people and patients and your team exceedingly well. And I want you to help solve problems that interest you and which line up with your strengths and your gifts and your talents. And I want you to bring your best every day. Don't worry about tomorrow. I do. Enough worrying for everybody probably shows. But here are 4 things I want you to take away. These are 4 easy things. And you're like, well, it's not postcards. It's not a new website. It's not all these other things. No, it's not. Whether you're busy seeing patients or you got a moment to yourself, I think that these things will make a big impact among your staff and your patients. And you're going to lead by example. We put a bingo game that you and your team can have, make a game of it. We've gamified the patient experience. Go to conciergemedicine.org or conciergemedicineforum.com. It's also going to be in the swag bags of every attendee at the Concierge Medicine Forum this October. You'll get that for free. But we have also put a PDF download at our website, conciergemedicineforum.com. And it'll also be for free in our swag bag with every single schedule and ticket at the Concierge Medicine Forum. But it's 10 ways to be for patients. Because as we say around here a lot, it's no longer about being the best doctor in the world anymore. It's about being the best doctor for the world and for your patients and for your local community. So here's how I want you to start when you get off this webinar today. I want you to smile. Just smile. Smile at the patient or the person sitting or standing across from you, they're going to smile back. I promise. 2, lift someone's spirits this week. Send a little sunshine in the form of a handwritten note to one person to encourage them or thank them for something that they did, whether it's a patient or a team member or a spouse or a colleague. Number 3, this is a hard one. Turn your cell phone off 15 minutes before bed than normal. I'm guilty of this one too. That's a hard one. Number 4, text one person with this message. I believe in you. Have a great day. I've practiced what I preach. I've done this. And I can tell you that this stuff works. And if this was your contribution and mine to our communities and in healthcare, man, we would influence a whole lot more patients and people and doctors towards better businesses and practices and health. All right. Here's some industry references and resources to continue to unpack these ideas and more. Essentially, it's like 101, 201, 301, 401, and kind of leading you up in your education related to marketing resources. If I were you right now, I would probably, if you're just in startup, you want to look for the basics for beginners, the Doctor's Guide to Concierge Medicine. If you've already started your concierge practice and you're thinking, well, I just kind of need marketing and customer service, and then I need to really refine the experience, I would recommend marketing your brand of membership medicine, which is 201, No More Waiting Rooms, and read them in this order. And which has advanced customer service lessons, and then mastering the new patient referrals by curating remarkable experiences in the 401 book called Remarkology. Those are all available at conciergemedicineforum.com or conciergemedicinetoday.org. Now, besides these books, I would also recommend my Mount Rushmore of marketing books that I would highly recommend you put in your Audible library, or you get today and order on your Kindle or in paperback or hardcover. The Comeback Effect, which I mentioned earlier, by Jason Young. Know What You Are For by Jeff Henderson, and At Your Best by Carrie Nieuwhof, and of course, Excellence Wins by Horst Schulze. You can scan that QR code. It'll take you to all of these books and more, to our reading list, and we'd love to hear what you're reading. And I hope that all of this has been helpful for you. I am for you, and I do care about you and your patient experience, and I care about your practice because you're too important to lose in your local community. Your influence, your voice is too important, because remember this, it's no longer about being the best doctor in the world anymore. It's about being the best doctor for the world and for your patients and for your local community. Thank you so much for your time today. I'll catch you on the next one.